YouTube, how's it going? Welcome back to Paul's Wrath. My name is JD, and today we are doing a very fun video. We are doing a recap of the Ground Type Challenge of Generation 1. We played through with 5 Pokemon: Marowak, Nidoqueen, Nidoking, Dugtrio, and Sandslash. We played through them over the last 5 weeks. Recommend you go check those videos out. Today we're going to be doing a recap of those videos, and we also did a second playthrough this week, and we're going to factor in those times as well as we rank them from worst to best. And starting with the worst Pokemon in this challenge is a Pokemon I did not think would come in last. I thought it would come in second to last, and I will call this Pokemon the People's Champ because it had the most views of all the Pokemon in this challenge. It has Dugtrio. Dugtrio came with the first round time of 57 minutes and 22 seconds. We had 15 resets, and we beat the game at level 69. Very nice. And in the second playthrough, we shaved off over 7 minutes, ended up getting a time of 50 minutes, 15 seconds, 6 resets, and we beat the game at level 71. Really, the problem with this Pokemon is it just has 2 things that don't go for it. First thing, HP is low, and we also don't have good defense. Those 2 things are not great with this Pokemon. You're very frail, so you have to find a way to kind of like 1 or 2 hit everything and just try not to take anything back. The second problem with this Pokemon is if you look at its move pool, it's very shallow. The shallow move pool makes it so you don't have a lot of strategies, which is not always a bad thing. You know, sometimes you have so many options that, you know, you just kind of a little bit of analysis or paralysis by analysis. You have too many options, so you don't know what to pick. Nidoking and Nidoqueen kind of have that problem. But with this Pokemon, you kind of got to funnel to a strategy, and then you got to just go all in on making that strategy work. And the way we made that strategy work with this Pokemon is by making sure we were a couple levels higher when we went to the Elite Four. That way we can get some better battle ranges and everything like that. That's how we were able to cut off 9 resets, which saved us so much time. But really, the real problem with this Pokemon is just move diversity is what kills it. And when you look at the next Pokemon, a Pokemon that came in second to last, it's a Pokemon I thought would come in last. It has so much move diversity that we're able to go with a little bit more of a risky strategy, and it paid off in a big way. But Dugtrio, I will say, is the People's Champ. I really wish I could have shaved another 16 seconds off this playthrough and got this under a sub 50. That way all the ground type Pokemon were sub 50. I could probably do that. I might play another playthrough in the future, see if I can do that. I'm sure everyone will ask for it. This is the People's Champ after all. But this Pokemon, solid Pokemon, one of my favorite Pokemon Generation 1. So I'll put my personal biases aside and say I'm not happy that it came in last, but I am happy that it got such a good time compared to what I've done in the past with this Pokemon. Let's move on to the next Pokemon, which is Marowak. Marowak came in 4th place, or second to last, whatever you want to call it. Its first playthrough, 1 hour, 5 minutes, and 19 seconds, 8 resets, beat the game at level 72. In the second playthrough, we were able to shave off 16 minutes on the dot, and we only had 4 resets, and we beat the game at level 69. Very nice. What was the difference with this Pokemon? Well, first off, in the first playthrough, my strategy was to kind of overlevel my problems. And in the second playthrough, I was like, you know what? We have the capacity here for some boom or bust kind of strategy. I just went really risky strategies. I started risky from the get-go, from the beginning of the game, and I went through, and we only got 4 resets. 2 of them were against Misty. And I don't remember the third one. I think in the 4th one, we got 1 against Lorelei. But we obliterated this game with this Pokemon. And now, the 49 minutes, is that a great time? No. There's some Pokemon that are 10 minutes faster than this, if not more. Shaving 16 minutes off of time might be the biggest time jump I've had so far. And this Pokemon, like I said, it's about boom or bust. It's about understanding, you know, where you need to overlevel, where you can take risks. And in the Elite Four, going all in and just going for Blizzard on Lance. Lance was the big crux of the problem with this Pokemon. I think a lot of the resets came to Lance. I think 4 or 5 of them came with Lance in the first playthrough. In the second playthrough, we first try victoried. I think we got first try victory over the entire Elite Four except for Lorelei. So Bruno was the first try victory. Agatha was the first try victory. Lance was the first try victory. And the champion was the first try victory. That's how we were able to get this Pokemon under 50 minutes, getting into a top tier. And I'm very proud of this playthrough. It's not a Pokemon that I anticipated anything really coming out of it, honestly, but with a little bit of a risky strategy and just going all in on that. And like I said, this Pokemon, like the opposite of Dugtrio, does not have, this Pokemon has options. It has tons of options that you can do. Some of those options aren't great, but nonetheless, you still have a lot of different options. And by going with a much riskier strategy, we were able to shave off so much time, be able to shave off so many resets, and we were able to do it at a much lower level. I'm very proud of the results from this Pokemon. Like I said, it's still not like a top tier, but you know, when you shave 16 minutes off a run, that's a big deal. That's a big deal to me. That shows that there's this, I just totally mishandled this Pokemon in the first place. That's definitely possible. Well, let's move into the Pokemon I thought would come in third, which it did come in third. It's a very just solid Pokemon, and it's consistent. First playthrough, 53 minutes, 27 seconds, 3 resets, and level 65. In the second playthrough, we ended up beating the game at 47 minutes, 56 seconds. So we shaved off just about 6 minutes. And then we got 2 resets, and we beat the game at level 65. Seeing 2 resets, I could probably, honestly, maybe shave a little bit more time on this. This could be a Pokemon I can get into the sub 45 tier. I just don't know consistently. But what we did in this playthrough to save some time is, first off, we beat Brock at level 13 rather than 15. In the early game, this Pokemon only has Scratch and Sand Attack. When we faced Brock in the first playthrough, we had to be at level 15. And at level 15, we beat him pretty handily. I think we had just about like half health left or something like that. So I'm like, you know what? We can afford to be a little risky on Brock. And we shaved off, I think, with 2 to 3 minutes right there by not having to grind up 2 more levels from 13 to 15. And we ended up getting the win over Brock early. And then from there, we were gaining time at that point. We ended up saving, like I said, just under 6 minutes, about 5.5 minutes to be honest with you. And this Pokemon, it's nothing's going to blow your socks away. The stats of this Pokemon are solid, but they're not great. The move pool for this Pokemon, its level move pool is actually garbage. If you look at it, nothing here is ground type. The only move that's actually of any utility is Slash. Sand Attack has its utility for a little bit, but after like the first gym or so, it really has nothing helpful. All your stuff comes from TMs. And the problem with TMs is you gotta wait till that part of the game where they're available to get them. Once this Pokemon gets a dig, it really opens it up. Body Slam helps too. But then this Pokemon gets Swords Dance, and it's just not even close. This is the only Pokemon that actually got a badge boosting move. So when you look at it from the standpoint of, you'd think the Pokemon with the badge boosting move would do the best, but it still ends middle of the pack just because of what happens from the start of the game to like the point where you get like Dig and then eventually get Swords Dance. It's just a lot of mediocre in between that. Nothing great, nothing that knocks your socks off. And Swords Dance really compensates for this Pokemon. If this Pokemon didn't have Swords Dance, it would easily be the worst Pokemon in this challenge just because it doesn't have a way to compensate for its deficiencies. When we look at the Pokemon that came in second place, everyone probably predicted this, and I predicted this, it's Nidoqueen. Nidoqueen's a solid Pokemon. In the first playthrough, she got one of the fastest times. She was top 10 Pokemon in the first playthrough. 41 minutes, 54 seconds, 1 reset, level 65. And in the second playthrough, we beat the game at 38 minutes, 58 seconds, 1 reset, and at level 68. So we over-leveled a little bit, and really the reason this Pokemon doesn't do well is two reasons. One, it doesn't have as good a move pool as Nidoking. Nidoking ends up being number 1. If you haven't guessed, it's the number 1 Pokemon in this challenge. And the reason why Nidoking ends up coming in and winning in that challenge is because his early game move pool is very good. It's not good for Brock, because Brock, you need to have something to counter by game. However, after you beat Brock, Thrash is just a move that just really obliterates a lot of things in your path, and it really speeds up so much time. Body Slam is not a bad move. You start the game with it. However, when you're going through and you have to keep, clicking the move and you run out of power points, you have to go heal, those times gradually add up over time. Now I'm looking at this, and we beat the game at level 68, and I think there's just a little bit more room for improvement there. You can be a little bit risky like I explained with Marowak. You have the capacity to be a little bit more risky. So that's something maybe we got to consider in the future. Eventually, I'm probably going to do one more run with this Pokemon. When I get all the Pokemon done, we're going to have one more run to see if I can improve the times, then have an official rating. This Pokemon is a Pokemon I think you're going to have to go a little bit more risky to try to compensate and get a better time. The other problem with this Pokemon, it doesn't have as good a stat distribution as Nidoking. It has pretty good stats. Looking at the stats right there, everything there is solid. There's not really a glaring weakness. However, when you compare that to Nidoking, Nidoking has much better stat distribution than the stats that matter in a solo challenge. So without further ado, the champion of this run is Nidoking. Nidoking comes in the first time playthrough. It's the 3rd best playthrough I've done in its first playthrough. 39 minutes, 41 seconds, 0 resets to beat the game level 67. In the second playthrough, we end up getting a time of 37 minutes, 17 seconds. So we shaved off 2.5 minutes. So we definitely saved some time off there. No resets, level 67. And like I said about Nidoking, and like I said about a couple other Pokemon, there's probably some room for improvement because we could afford to be a little bit more risky. 67, level 67, we could probably beat this level 64, 65, something like that. And also, no resets, that means we just weren't that risky. But ultimately, this is the number 1 Pokemon in my overall challenges so far. This Pokemon has one of the best move pools available. It doesn't have Dig. If it had Dig, I'd love to see what this Pokemon do with Dig. That might be a what-if scenario. Let me know in the comment section down below if you want to see that. What would this Pokemon do if it had Dig? If it had Dig, I mean, come on. That's not even fair. Because one of the big problems with this Pokemon, it's not like a big problem, it's just a challenge you have, is you have to face Pokemon Tower with all the ghost types. And at that time, we don't have Earthquake, and we don't have a great move to take on the ghosts. So that's a challenge we have to take on. But having Dig would immediately compensate for that problem. And the Ghost Tower the Pokemon Tower would be a little bit faster, so that saves probably another minute off this time. There's just so many things that we can consider. with this Pokemon with no resets and a good time like that. A couple resets being a little more risky. This Pokemon could afford to be a little bit better. Like I said, there will be another playthrough of this Pokemon whenever we're near the end of this, when we rank, the best Pokemon overall in the game of Pokemon Blue. Let's look at the tier list real quick. So this is the tier list before the second playthroughs. So we're very well distributed amongst this tier list. In the SS tier, we have Nidoking. In the S tier, we have Nidoqueen. No one's in the A tier. Sandslash is in the B tier. We have Dugtrio in the C tier, and we have Marowak all the way down in the E tier. And with the updated playthroughs in the second round, we end up getting a distribution where the worst Pokemon is in the B tier. And it's only in the B tier by 16 seconds. If I could have shaved off 16 more seconds, every ground type Pokemon would be sub 50 or higher. And that's incredible. That's incredible. And when you look at this, you have Dugtrio there bouncing around the B tier. It is a Pokemon that is not very good when it comes to just this stat distribution. It has horrible HP, has horrible defense, and it's just a little vole or mole Pokemon, whatever it is, and it's up there beating Pokemon like Dragonite, like Pinsir, Rapidash, Primeape, Dugtrio. It's just up there with these really good Pokemon, and it's even possibly could even be better than Electabuzz. I mean, I might try one more. I might try one more in the future, because Dugtrio is one of my favorites, and like I said, I think people like Dugtrio, so I might try that. But then you look at the A tier, and you got Marowak up there, right in the middle of the electric types, and you have Sandslash, on top of the A tier. That Pokemon could get 45, maybe. Then you look up there at the S tier, and none of them are in the S tier because both of the top two Pokemon in this challenge are in the SS tier. So our first and third Pokemon so far in this playthrough are Nidoking and Nidoqueen, which I think we all expected them to be that good. That's not something that's surprising to me. Now, I do gotta let you know, there are some other ground types in Pokemon Generation 1, but those Pokemon are grouped in with the rock types. For example, Rhydon, Onix, Golem, those three are technically still considered ground types. I did not throw them in this because I wanted to throw them in the rock types. If I don't have them in the rock types only have like 4 Pokemon or 3 Pokemon, and that's not going to be fun. So I have them in the rock type challenge. Now that's going to bring down the average. So at the end of this overall challenge I'm doing, where I'm looking at all the types of Generation 1, at the end of this we're going to have data, and I can look and see what the average time is for every Pokemon that has the ground type, every Pokemon has the electric type, every Pokemon that has the rock type, etc. And that's what's going to happen. So right now, if we took the ground type, we're averaging, oh my god, looking at this, Nidoking and Nidoqueen are sub 40, and we're looking at Pokemon that are going to average around like the sub 45 tier, just because of how good the times are, and that's amazing to me. Now, when you look at the ice types, that's another example of a type that has a really good typing and distribution in here. Like all the ice types are in the sub 45 tier, except for Jinx, and Jinx still hasn't done a second playthrough, so she brings down that average. So that's just what we're going to ultimately do at the end of all this. We're going to have a cluster of data, and we're going to figure out the best type, the best of every type, the best type combo maybe. I might be a part of it as well. But ultimately, the ground type challenge, I'm extremely happy with the results that we end up getting. A lot of these Pokemon outperformed my expectations and exceeded my expectations, especially Marowak. I'm so proud of that run. Marowak needs adjusted a little bit. Let me just move him up right there. There we go. But I'm very happy with the results here, and I really wish I got Dugtrio into the sub 50 run, sub 50 tier. That's going to be another playthrough in the future. I'll find some time to do that, and I'll give you guys the results. I do have some videos I do where I do second playthroughs with Pokemon I didn't do a second playthrough for, and I might just throw Dugtrio in and see if we can get him under the 50 minutes here. But I'm happy with the results. I hope you are too. Next week, we got some things coming out. First thing we got coming out is we got the first rock type challenge Pokemon in Generation 1, which is going to be Kabutops. I think he's going to come in first, so he gets to go first. That way all the other rock type Pokemon get the chance to see what he does and kind of learn from his mistakes. And then, like I said, in the second playthrough, we'll learn from our mistakes with that Pokemon specifically. And then the second thing that's going to come out next week is we got an optimized playthrough of Steelix in Generation 2. It's going to start the game with Rock Slide and maybe something else, haven't decided yet. And we're going to have a much better hidden power than we did in the first playthrough. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Who is your favorite ground type Pokemon? Do you think that we can get Dugtrio into the sub A tier? Do we think we can get Nidoking down to sub 35? What do you think about the ground type challenge? Let me know. And in the comment section down below, make sure you like, subscribe, comment down below, like this video, subscribe to the channel. All those things really are amazing. And you're amazing for sticking around this long. Have a good one. I'll see you guys next time.